Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX Deepdive. My name is Vineet Malhotra. The massive glacial collapse that caused catastrophic flash floods in the Himalayan border region of Nepal and Tibet has killed at least 360 people as of now, with the toll expected to go up. Today we delve into what exactly unfolded. Now, the most important thing to understand is that this was not a conventional rain-driven flood. The disaster began high in the Himalayas near the Nepal-Tibet border. Preliminary analysis suggests that a large section of a glacier that stood at an altitude of 17,000 feet collapsed. The collapsed section was 2,000 feet wide and plunged almost 4,000 feet down the mountain. That is a vertical drop of more than a kilometer. And when a massive block of ice falls from that height, it doesn't simply land on the valley floor. It brings with it enormous energy that picks up rocks, soil, and sediment. And according to assessments, the resulting ice and the rock avalanche struck the Lehende River in Tibet. This became the origin point of the flash flood, plunging into the river at around 8:40 a.m. on the 26th of August at a speed of 71 kilometers per hour. The debris appeared to temporarily block the river, effectively creating a natural dam with water accumulating behind the obstruction. When that blockage gave way, the stored water, ice, rock and sediment was suddenly released downstream. This is what transformed a high-altitude glacier collapse into a flash flood. Within minutes, the surge was moving towards the Bhotekoshi River, entering the Bhotekoshi Channel at around 9 a.m. at a speed of 55 kilometers per hour. From there, it further traveled 13 kilometers in just 15 minutes. That means we are talking about an extraordinary transition from a glacier collapse at 17,000 feet to a major flood surge at the border in less than half an hour. This is where the geography of the Himalayas becomes crucial. The rivers in this region run through extremely steep, narrow valleys. There is very little space for a massive surge of water and debris to spread sideways. Instead, the valley effectively becomes a channel directing the energy downstream. From the Bhotekoshi, the flood travelled downstream and eventually entered the wider Trishuli river system at around 11:50 a.m. Overall, this means that the flood travelled over 70 to 80 kilometers in just 2.83 hours. That works out to an average downstream speed of about 25 to 28 kilometers per hour. And so, as the flood entered the Trishuli river system, it gave rise to waves over 9 feet high. Let's take a moment to think about the sheer scale of the devastating calamity. At its maximum point, the flood reached a speed of 71 kilometers per hour. That is 1 kilometer in just 15 seconds. That is roughly the same as a 15-ton bus hitting you at a speed of 71 kilometers per hour. Now imagine not one bus but a moving river carrying millions of tons of water and debris traveling through a confined Himalayan valley. Let's also try and understand the scale of water involved. Imagine a section of flood wave that is 2,000 feet wide, 9 feet high and 1 kilometer long. If we calculate the total of volume, that comes to over 1.67 million cubic meters. That is a staggering quantity. To put that into perspective, it is equivalent to roughly 670 Olympic-sized swimming pools or around a whopping 83,500 water tankers. That is 1.67 billion 1-liter bottles. But volume is only half the story. Now consider the weight. Take the volume of water. Here that is 1.67 million cubic meters. Now multiply that by density and acceleration due to gravity. That comes to a total weight of 1.64 million tons of water, and that is before we even account for the additional weight of rocks, mud, ice, trees and other debris. That is roughly the same as the mass of 1 million cars hitting you at the same time. Picture 1,875 trains or 7,500 planes hitting you all at once. The satellite imagery shows the devastation to the region. The images show perhaps the clearest picture of just how dramatically the landscape has changed after the flash floods. The before shows the area before the flood. You can clearly see a densely vegetated Himalayan landscape with the river following a relatively narrow and defined course through the valley. The river is visible but contained within the valley. Now look at the after. This is the same landscape after the flood. The transformation is stark. The green landscape has been replaced by vast stretches of brown, grey and exposed terrain. What was once a clearly defined river channel has been dramatically widened and reshaped. The flood has scoured the valley floor, stripped away vegetation and deposited huge quantities of mud, rock and sediment across the landscape. In other words, this is not just water that has passed through, this is landscape that has been reworked by the force of the flood. What we see here is essentially the footprint of the flood. The lighter, barren stretches show where vegetation and soil have been stripped away or where fresh sediment has been deposited. The river corridor appears dramatically altered, showing just how much material the flood was capable of moving. This is sheer destructive power of a Himalayan flash flood, not just destroying what is in its path, but changing the path itself. Green became grey, a narrow river channel became a much wider corridor of debris, and a landscape that had remained intact for years was resculpted in a matter of hours. We'll take a short break on that note. Be right back.